Hey guys, this is LegoMatic9, and today I'm going to be showing you guys my custom LEGO minifigures based off of the characters from Rogue One, A Star Wars Story. I have 8 figures to show you guys. I just cannot wait to get into this video. These guys took me a lot of time to make, and I incorporated a lot of cool elements and styles in these guys, different ways of going about making each one, and I just can't wait to get into it with you guys. But before I move on, I just want to let you guys know that if you post spoilers down in the comments below, I've already seen the movie by this point, but if you post spoilers in the comments, I'm going to be insta-banning people just because I don't want people to get the movie ruined if they haven't seen it yet and are just wanting to see some LEGO figures. So save me some time. Don't post spoilers down in the comments below, but if you do, I'm just going to be insta-banning people. So, just be considerate and don't spoil the movie for others. So that being said, let's go ahead and jump into the close-ups on these figures. So we're going to start off with Jyn Erso, the lead character in Rogue One. Now for Jyn, I made her in her Jedha outfit, which is the green jacket underneath the vest rather than just the plain gray shirt. And I just really like the look of this better because the green just pops and with the yellow stripe and everything. And I just really like the way this looks on the Black Series figure as well as the Hot Toys figure. Just this outfit is definitely my favorite of hers out of all of the trailers and all the promo shots that we've seen. I just really like the look of this outfit, so I went ahead and made it. So we're going to start off with her weapon, which is the A1080 pistol. Now this gun is actually a modular weapon, which means that you can slap a bunch of different attachments on it to make it different types of weapons, basically. So in Battlefront, if you don't know, in the Battlefront DLC, you can actually get this weapon and you can put a whole bunch of attachments on it, so you can make it either a ion cannon, a rifle, or a sniper rifle, or just the standard pistol. So I'm really looking forward to seeing that aspect incorporated into the movie. I really want to see her use all those types of weapons and stuff. So if I make another version of Jyn Erso, I might make her with a different style of this particular weapon. So I'm really looking forward to that. So this A1080 was actually made out of a Brick Arms Luger. As soon as I saw the A1080 in the trailer and in the promo shots and stuff, I knew that they used a Luger as a base, because I know they use World War II weapons primarily as bases for their weapons in Star Wars. And so I saw that, I was like, that's definitely a Luger. So I took a Brick Arms Luger and widened the barrel with some Procreate and added some other little details in black, and then painted up in silver black. And yeah, so it looks pretty nice. So moving on to the actual figure, we'll just go and start with the legs, and so those are probably the simplest part of this figure. So I just painted on the boots in a dark brown color, and then on top of the boots, on top of the little feet, you can see the buckles painted on there in some gunmetal. So you can see those on there, so that's a pretty cool little detail. Now, along her waist, I incorporated a 3D cloth belt that was painted brown, and then dry brush and added some little silver details onto that for the buttons and stuff. So that wraps around her entire body like that, so I think that is pretty cool. And then she also has the holster strap wrapping around her leg, and then the holster on the side there, so I think that looks pretty cool. Moving on to her torso, underneath is just a gray torso with some details painted on for the wrinkles and the collar. Now I primarily based that design off of the promo shot LEGO posted for their Rogue One sets. God, like back earlier in the year sometime, I can't remember when, I think it was probably around April or so, and so I based it off of that design because I thought it was pretty cool, and yes, and I painted on the wrinkles and stuff on there as well. Now her jacket is where all the fun began on this figure, because cloth is something I really love working with. I try to incorporate it everywhere I can in my figures, just some of my style that I really like using, and so with her, I decided to borrow an idea that I used on my A New Hope Han Solo figure, where I used 3D elements with cloth for the pockets on his vest, so I incorporated that on her, and I think it looks really cool. So the base of this was just a Cape Madness vest, and then underneath that I added another layer of cloth for the green jacket, which wraps around the entire figure. And then on top of the vest, there are, I think, 2 more layers. So on top of the vest, you can kind of see where that part ends right there, and then right there as well. So this, from like here to the top, is another layer of cloth, which is kind of like in a rectangular shape, and then I painted that up, glued that on there, and then on top of that I have another layer which has those little black rectangles, has these kind of like tan pockets, and then you have the zipper and then the zipper flap on this side. Down here I've got some little buckles painted in gunmetal, and then over here I have some little doodad that was on her jacket that I painted on there, so I think that looks pretty cool. Then she has just a little strap just hanging down right here as well from her vest, so I think that's pretty cool. Now both sides of her arms just have this yellow stripe that kind of just has those little indentations on it, which look pretty cool. So both sides are like that. The face is just the Lego face. I thought it was pretty perfect for her, so I just reused that. I think it's pretty good. And then the hair was a modified hair piece. So what I did for this one, I used to have like a really long ponytail down to like here. I chopped that off and sanded the crap out of the back of this figure, and then re-sculpted it and sculpted on the bun. And I think I re-sculpted it pretty well. It matches with the Lego style pretty nicely, and you can't really see the transition from Lego piece to sculpt, so I think that turned out pretty nice. So hopefully you guys like Jyn. Really like making her, so hopefully you guys do too. Next up we have Captain Cassian Andor. Now this guy was a lot of fun to make, and I really like how he turned out because I really like this outfit. Ever since I saw him in that promo shot for Rogue One back in the beginning of the year, I just knew I was going to make him in this outfit just because I really like that look of that blue parka. So I was really excited to make this guy, and I knew without a doubt I'd be making him in this outfit. So starting off with his gun, just like Jyn's pistol, I knew exactly what I'd be using as a base, and that is an M4. Now Cassian's pistol looks a lot like this one because I believe they actually just used a receiver for an M4 or some sort of AR and just chopped the barrel off, chopped the stock off, and chopped the rail off, and just used the receiver and a kind of like a small mag on it, and they used that for his pistol. So I was like, that's exactly what I'm going to use. I'm going to use a tiny tactical M4, did exactly what they did, chopped up the stock, the rail, and the barrel, and I just think it looks really awesome. So with using a tiny tactical M4 as a base, I then made a barrel for it, and then painted it up in a silver, gunmetal, and black color scheme. I just think it looks really cool. So that's pretty cool looking pistol. This one is also, again, a modular pistol, just like Jyn's. So with Cassian, you can slap a scope as well as a barrel onto it, and then a stock as well to make it kind of look like a A280. And I think that it looks pretty cool. So I have another M4, so I think I'm going to make his pistol when I make another version of Cassian, because I want to make him in his Scarif outfit with the vest and everything. And I might do that, but I haven't really decided yet. But I really want to make his gun, so I'll probably end up doing that eventually. So back onto the figure there, he's just got the same boots as Jyn does, same exact design. Even painted the buckles on the top of them as well, so those look pretty cool. Then he also has a holster glued onto the side using cloth, so I think that was pretty cool. Now we'll start off with his, we'll go into his parka here. Now that thing was a lot of fun to make. So the base of that was made out of E-tape, and so I've made that out of E-tape, and then I used cloth for pretty much everything else on this. So the belt is cloth, the collar here is cloth, because I noticed I had a different texture, and then the pockets down here and there are also cloth. And I painted it in this really nice blue color. I know it might seem kind of too light or kind of just off, but I really like how it turned out, and so yeah. So that looks pretty cool. It's got the hood on there also, that's out of electrical tape, so I kind of misspoke there. And then he's got the buckle on there as E-tape too. Then I painted on the little buckle design, got the outlines for the zippers on the straps there. Then these are actually, I believe they're M4 barrels from Brick Arms that I stuffed into a little cloth pouch that I made. So those are glued in there, and then that's glued onto his belt. He also has a little box thing up there, a little mag or something, glued on up there with a cloth strap around it. Now his fur, I actually borrowed an idea from my buddy the Moose Figs. This is where he's going to get one of his shoutouts in this video because he helped me out a lot with some of these designs on these guys. So that is actually a cotton ball. He used that on his penguin figure, so I stole that idea from him and did that on Cassian. So what I did is I put a cotton ball on there and I glued it down, then cut it up, formed it the way I wanted it to, and then I put a little layer of glue on top of that, and then I painted it up and it hardened to the shape I wanted it, and then I dry brushed it in some other colors, and I think it looks pretty cool. So definitely a good way to achieve a cloth collar look. So thank you, Dylan, for that design. I think that's pretty sick. Underneath that, he has a brown shirt with, it's got some details painted on there for his skin tone, as well as just some outlines for his shirt. His sleeves here, painted in just the same color scheme. It's got the tan stripe running down. He also has some little, I don't know, pins or something glued on there. And then he has gloves. So he's got E-tape gloves for around the arm, and then you have the tiny tactile glove tops that were glued on there, and then everything was painted up, and I think it looks pretty nice. So he's got both of those on his hands, and then he has a little comlink painted on there, and then some little doodad on there. His head is just the normal Cassian head that I repainted, so it's a little darker of a facial hair. color, and then his hair was that kind of like comb over, and then I sculpted on the bangs because he had some really pointy bangs, so I was like, I want to incorporate that into a Lego figure, so I think that looked pretty cool. So that's going to be about it for Cassian Andor. K2SO has to be the most fun I've ever had while making a Lego minifigure. This guy was just so much fun to make, just being able to play with him and mess with him and stuff while I was going through this process of making him. It was just such a great time. I just can't express how much fun I've had making this guy. Just what I did for this guy is, I'll post a skeleton picture right here of where it started off as just droid parts, ball joints, antenna pieces, all this stuff just looked like a mess, and then I got it to look like this. That's just a lot of fun, just being able to take something that looks like that and transform it into something that looks like this. This guy is fully posable too. All right, so he's got shoulder articulation right here. They can move forward and back and stuff. Just let me make sure he doesn't fall off the stand here, so he can move his arm around. He's got elbow articulation. No waist pivot, which is kind of sucks. Just didn't include that. Regret not doing that. He's got head articulation. Move his head. He's got knee articulation. If I take him off the stand here, you can bend his knees. You can move his legs all around. It's just so much fun just playing with this guy and getting him into poses and stuff. You can just get him in anything. It's just crazy, all right? This guy was just a lot of fun to make. So as you can see from that picture, I had to do a lot of sculpting on this guy. So sculpted down from here, I sculpted little parts on the legs, sculpted all the way up the legs. Got these little cylinders or these little circles sculpted there. This entire waist was sculpted. And just the waist detail right there, sculpted on there. The torso is probably one of the hardest parts, just getting the shape right. So I think I did that. He might be a little fat, but I think it's all right. So sculpted that all on there. Sculpted a little detail onto his, I guess his shoulder area. I sculpted the shoulder armor right there. Did the sculpt all the way up the arms to because one of the things with the skeleton joint was that it was too wide for a Lego rod, so I had a sculpt on there to get it to flow and just look seamless, and I think it looks pretty nice. So just all this detail sculpted on there. You can see the tiny little Imperial emblem on his shoulder there. Those things were pain in the butt to paint. So we got those on there. That was just pain in the butt to do those. It's got the nice bronze detail on the shoulders and on the legs here. Got the nice detail sculpted onto the torso. On the back here, I really like the back. That sculpted detail and then that little back part there with the antenna. So that looks pretty nice. Moving around. His head was the last thing I did. Now, I know the head might seem either a little tall or just a little big. Just looking at it from the side, it looks a little too big. But looking from the front, I think it looks fine. I'd rather have it be a little too big than a little too small. I had some of my buddies were asking, why don't you just use the Lego head? Well, I wouldn't have been able to do the ball joint, be able to move the head around and stuff. Because the Lego one, it doesn't allow you to do that. Unless I drilled inside and threw a ball joint in there. But, yeah, I love how this thing started with just Lego pieces and just modified the crap out of Lego pieces as a skeleton. And then sculpted everything on top of it. I just think, I'm just super happy with how this guy turned out. Hopefully you guys like him. I'm just so happy with it. Now besides the sculpt, I painted him up in a pavement color, and then I washed it with gunmetal and silver to give it kind of like a battle-worn look, and I think it looks pretty nice. Gives him kind of like a metallic look. I'm really digging the finish this guy has on him. He's got other little details, such as the silver details on the chest. He's got a little white and blue light on the side there. He's got, again, the Imperial logos on his shoulders. He's got all this little silver detail on his arms. And then it's kind of hard to see the black detail in these arms, but you can kind of see it there. He does have a lot of detail painted onto his arms. You just got to hit the lights right. It's kind of blending in with it, so you guys can see this a little better. And they're on the legs too. Just the vague outlines of it. I didn't want it to be too detailed because I felt it might just take away from it. My paint work isn't really always too detailed with stuff, but I just really love how this guy turned out. I've got a lot of. I keep saying these figures are my favorites, man. But just as I'm going over them, they just grow on me so much more. Cassian, Vader, and K2 are definitely my top 3 from this video. These guys are just turned out so nice. So you can see just the head sculpt is pretty nice. Again, yeah, just a little too big, but you know, it works. For being entirely hand sculpted, I think it works for me, since I'm not really too used to sculpting a lot of different things that aren't like pouches or gauntlets or anything like that. But I think he turned out nice. You just get a lot of poses with them. I'm sure I've scattered a bunch of pictures of poses throughout this video. If not, I'll post them at the end of this. But he just looks so nice in all these different poses and stuff. So yeah, that's pretty much it for K2SO. I know I've gushed a lot on him, but I'm just super happy with how he turned out. He's definitely my most complex figure I've ever made, and I gotta give a big shout out to my buddy Dylan. I almost forgot to do that. Dylan helped me with this guy a lot because his Ultron that he made for Age of Ultron used that ball joint system for the joints and stuff, so I gotta give a big shout out to him. Go check him out. I've given him tons of shout outs throughout this video, so go check him out. Link will be in the description below. So thank you so much, Dylan, for giving me inspiration on that. So yeah, that's going to be it for K2SO. So let's take a break from the good guys and move on to some bad guys. And what's a better way to do that than with Darth Vader? So when I heard that Darth Vader was going to be in Rogue One, I immediately started thinking, how in the world am I going to make this guy? I want to make him as good and as different as I could. So I outsourced my buddy Sander. Now, if you remember Sander, I've talked about him in a lot of my videos, and I've worked with him on a lot of projects, such as my Destiny figures, and this Mandalorian guy right here. I've worked with him a lot of projects, and he's just a really great guy, really great to work with, and he makes these amazing sculpts. So I was just like, hey Sander, would you want to make me one of the best villains of all time, Darth Vader? And he was just like, hell yeah. So he made most of the sculpt on this guy. I'll get into all the specifics here in a little bit, but I just want to give a huge shout out to him, because without him, this figure would not even exist. I might have not even have made a Darth Vader, but, you know, just huge thanks to Sander for helping me out a ton on this guy. Go check him out. I'll have a link in the description below. So, onto the figure. He's armed with his lightsaber, because you can't have Darth Vader without his red lightsaber. Now, I have no idea if he uses his lightsaber in Rogue One or not, so it's not a spoiler, whatever. So, I have no idea if he uses it. I just gave him his ignited lightsaber just because you can't have Darth Vader without his lightsaber. I mean, come on. So I used the same strategy for the custom hilt as I used with my Skywalker family lightsaber. So I just used a lightsaber hilt and sculpted on the little grips down at the bottom, used metal for the top, and just sculpted on little areas here and there. So custom-made lightsaber, pretty cool. So on to Darth here. I extended his legs and his arms so he'd be taller than your standard Lego figure. So if I take Vader and if I take a Stormtrooper, stand them side by side. Let me make sure they're evened up here. So if you take them up side by side, as you can see, Vader is quite a bit taller than a Stormtrooper, which is pretty accurate. Stormtroopers are meant to be smaller, and Darth Vader is meant to be really tall, like 7 foot something. I have no idea, but he's a tall guy, so definitely wanted to make him taller. So I extended the legs and extended the arms. I have a leg extension tutorial, and I believe Dylan, the Moosefigs, has an arm extension tutorial, I think. I can't remember, but go check him out. His link will be in the description below anyway, so go check him out. And I have a tutorial on extended legs if you're interested in that. So on his legs, it's kind of hard to see. You can kind of see it there, but I did sculpt on his little shin guards there. So that's one part that I actually did sculpt, was those little areas in there. It's kind of hard to see because the cloth is in the way there, so it's kind of hard to see in there, but you can see they're sculpted on there. And then I also painted on his stitching on his pants in there too, but again, that's hard to see. Just not a lot of light getting in there, and I can't fold the fabric back to show you guys just because, you know, you can't really move it that much. So moving up, he's got a metal cod piece that wraps around his waist, so I added that on there because I didn't really feel like painting it, and I felt like sculpting it would be too thick, so I used metal for that, and it worked pretty nicely. His belt is made out of fabric, and it wraps all the way around, and he's got an electrical tape belt buckle that was also painted, and then he's got his 2 little control boxes or whatever that were sculpted on there. 2 green buttons were also sculpted on, then everything else was painted on. So I really like the look of those control boxes. For some reason, they just look pretty cool. You can also see a little bit of the stitching moving up towards the center there. You can just barely see that. Then now we're getting into Sander's sculpt here. So moving on to the chest rig and that little control box in the center. Those were all sculpted by Sander, and those were just one piece. So you can take that off, which is pretty cool. Then you can also just kind of see underneath the cape the shoulder pads. those are also part of this main chest rig here. So that's all one piece, just so I can remove that if I'd like to, and it was just made it a lot easier to paint and work with if I could just move it around and stuff. So all the little details were painted on there. I know on his control box there's supposed to be two little vertical silver lines that are going down on each side, but I just didn't have enough room to paint those on, so left those out, and it looks fine to me. Underneath all of that, you can see the cloth here, which is pretty nice. So I have it draping down from underneath this pauldron area, and it wraps all the way around. It's all one piece, and it wraps all the way around the figure. Just the cape's covering the back there. Onto the arms here, I painted on the stitching and everything, but it's just hard to see because I painted it in a pavement color, like a really dark gray. Just make it subtle enough that'll probably show up in pictures on my Flickr when I upload them, but it's just not showing up here because I don't know why. It's just not showing up. Now, his gloves were made out of electrical tape rather than sculpting them, so these are all electrical tape that were glued onto the hand, so the hand can still turn. It's just I'm not going to, just because in fear of paint rubbing off or just the glove breaking, so I'm not going to do that, but I assure you they can move. Now, the cape was made by Sander because I felt like a fabric cape would have been too hard to work with to get this shape, so he opted to make a sculpted cape, and it's pretty nice. Just drapes over him like that. That is also removable. It's its own separate piece too. And then you can see the chain towards the front there. That was painted in a metallic black just to make it stand out. Now we're getting into the big thing right here, the helmet. So Lego's helmet is god-awful. I will just say that. I absolutely hate Lego's helmet. It's just mainly because it's leaning back. My buddy Shane had a fix for that, which I don't know if he'll reveal that whenever, but he has a fix for that, so go check him out if you want to see that. But it's just, I just don't like it. There's just a sculpt of something, it's just weird, and I don't know, man, I just don't like the Lego sculpt. So when I asked Sandra, I was just like, I want to include functionality with this helmet too, which I'll get to a little bit. He just made this helmet so greatly, it's just amazing. I definitely really love the sculpt. I painted all of it in a black color, just a semi-gloss black. Added the little silver details for the little pins and the nose, and then I added a translucent red for the eyes there, which got the idea from my buddy Shane because he made an Iron Man that had a translucent red color. So he helped me out with that color. And then you can just see the sculpt and everything. I know it's black, so things will show, such as like little scratches in the sculpt or little pieces of dust sticking on it. But, you know, looks pretty good. Now let's get into the functionality of this helmet, just to show you guys what this thing can do. So Sander made a Ranger helmet from Fallout that could split into 3 pieces, so I was like, can you make a Vader helmet that does that too? So that's the big functionality with this thing, is it actually does split apart. So first off, you have to take off just this main rig right here. So we're just going to take this off, just slides right off, you can see the Vader head underneath it. Now I know he probably won't do this in Rogue One, but I just wanted that functionality just because it's so cool, just be able to take off his helmet in 3 pieces. So we'll slide that to the side. Now one of the big things with this thing is I haven't taken this apart in a little bit, so I don't know if this is going to come apart that easily. Some paint might be scratched on the inside, but I had a lot of trouble with figuring out how to make this so it would come off and on and stuff without paint scratching and just it sticking and stuff. So I'm just going to try to shimmy this off. Oh, yeah, there we go. So that just comes right out of that rig right there. So here is the other part of the helmet right here. So you can see some paint scratched up here, which is expected because he also sculpted all of the little detail on the top of this helmet here, which is just outstanding. And he's got all that. I know paint scratched because that's how it sticks into that dome part. So this is all one piece right here. So you can take this, you can put this back on Vader right here. And then this dome part is another piece. So you can see, you can't really see in there, but there is some sculpt and stuff in there. Just you could barely see it in there. It's kind of hard to see with that light, but there's the sculpted detail in there, and it's just crazy that he's able to do that. Now you can see the paint is a lot lighter on the top of the mask there, just because I didn't want the paint to stick to this, because that's what it was doing before. It was sticking to this, and it was just too thick of a layer. So I had to sand it off and repaint on a much thinner layer. So we're just gonna stick this dome back on there like so. Alright, so that is it for Darth Vader. And we also have director Orson Krennic. Now this guy was a pretty simple figure to make. There wasn't a lot of too highly detailed and too really complex things on him. Just an Imperial officer pretty much, so it was pretty simple. Starting off, he's armed with his DT-29 pistol, which is pretty cool. I used a Torque-Rev, I think, as a base, and then a Brick Arms Torque-Rev to be specific, and then I glued on a barrel-less sight and then sculpted on the chamber for the rounds and stuff. But I feel like they should be a little further down than what it is, but what do you want to do about it? Then I painted it silver, and then I have the brown handle painted on there. So this guy is pretty simple. Again, like I said, just the standard Imperial officer tunic uniform, I guess, whatever you want to call it, except it's in white. Now, what I did for him is for the tunic that extends below the waist, I used E-tape. Now, that's an idea from the Moose Figs. He used that on his Grand Admiral Thrawn, and then I also used it on my Luke Skywalker from A New Hope. So I just reused that design, and I think it works pretty nice because it captures that same texture that plastic gives off, that nice smooth texture, rather than the kind of like rigid texture that cloth has. So I use E-tape for that, and I think it looks pretty nice. Then he has an E-tape belt that goes around, an E-tape belt buckle, then an E-tape holster for his pistol right there. He's just got the tunic design painted on there in black, and then just that side was painted in a lighter gray, so it's not as prominent. And then he also has these kind of like pins that are in these little pockets on the side. And then he has his little badges or his medallions or medals or packs of gum on there, whatever you want to call them. And then, so that's actually sculpted on there. Each one of those is sculpted. I should probably point that out. Each one of those is sculpted on there, and that was a pain in the butt, but it made it a lot easier to paint them since they're raised up. I didn't have to worry about getting a perfect square since I had already sculpted squares. So I painted those, so you got a row of 6 red and then a row of 6 blue. I think that looks pretty nice. Now, his cape is just a modified Cape Madness cape, forget the style of it or whatever the name is, with a little slit cut in the back there since his cape kind of like folds into 2 parts. It's not as far up as, I honestly don't know how far it's supposed to go up. I think it's only a little bit, so it's not too bad. And then the face is just the Director Krennic face that Lego made. Thing works pretty perfectly, so I didn't think about changing it. Now the hair, I just added the gray sideburns there, and then I gave it a dark brown and then also a dark gray wash to make it look a little older. So Krennic, pretty simple figure, but I really like how he turned out. So there he is, Director Krennic. Now, Baze Malbus was a fun figure to make, and you guys can probably guess why. There was a lot of sculpting, just a lot of stuff to do on this guy, and it kept me busy for a long time, but I really, really like how he turned out. So there's just a lot to go over on this guy, so I guess we will start with his gun. Now, here's his gun. Now, this was completely sculpted pretty much. Now, I just used a Brick Arms gun as a base, and I can't remember what it was. And then I sculpted all of the little details onto it, such as just like the raised portions and all of that stuff. And I glued on a scope, and you got the little light at the front there. And just all those little details sculpted and painted on there, and I just think it turned out really nice. I have no idea what this blaster's called. I think it's some sort of blaster repeater. I have no idea. So for his chain, now this was something, again, that was borrowed from the Moose Figs. Well, he actually told me about this because I was like, I'm trying to make Baze, and I have no idea what I'm going to be doing for the belt, because he's got this kind of flexible belt that goes into his backpack. And so he's like, well, what about a rubber band? So I took a rubber band and I sprayed it with an acrylic spray so I'd be able to paint on it. And then I glued on all of these little strips of electrical tape. Now I know this isn't completely accurate because his belt isn't solid, because there's actually supposed to be just like 2 lines running through there, and there's supposed to be like a gap in the middle. But I just went for this because I felt like it'd be easier and it would be the sturdiest thing I could do at the moment. So I really like how that turned out. So just a rubber band with some electrical tape glued onto it, and then I'll paint it up. Now you can see that this kind of like folds out of the backpack, but what you can do is just slide it back up in there. Now I don't have it glued in there just so you can be able to like move his arm and stuff, get him in a shooting position, and then you can manipulate this any way you want to get it to the right position. Now his backpack is just made out of a 1x1 cylinder piece, and then I actually bent an antenna piece and glued it onto the side there, sculpted a little bit of detail, such as that ring going around there, and then the little raised portion right there, painted up in gunmetal in dark red, and glued it onto his back. So I think that looks pretty nice. So enough with his gun, we'll go on with his legs here. So he's just got some brown shoes painted on there, and then he's got the big armor on that side of his leg sculpted on there. So both this kind of like thigh guard and then the knee pad are sculpted on there and painted up. He's got a pocket painted on that side. Moving up onto his torso, he has a fabric belt that goes all the way around, and then he's got the pockets glued on there, and then the belt buckle on there as well. So moving up, he's got this chest rig, or this chest armor that goes around his entire shoulders and stuff. And so that was kind of like a weird thing to do, kind of a weirdly shaped armor piece, but I think it looks pretty cool the way I did it. So sculpted that on there, and I have that little like circle thing sculpted on there, and then the other little detail sculpted on there. And then right here you have just his ammo things right here. I think they look like magazines, but his gun doesn't seem like it would take that type of ammunition, so I don't really know what they are. So they're sculpted on there, the little pouches are sculpted on there, and the holes were poked in, and then he's got the little mag tips poking out there, I don't know, and he's got some little other gadget sculpted onto that side of his torso right there. Then he's got other details painted on there, such as his pockets up towards the top, and just other details for the shirt. He's got these kind of wrist, I don't know what they are, they're not really gauntlets, they're just these rings that go around his wrist. Those are sculpted on there on both sides. On this side he has a shoulder pad, so that was sculpted on there, up there. On the back here, he has this little, sorry for me shaking him, but he's got this cloak that is glued on here, and I actually sculpted a little hook for it, so it's resting on a hook right now, and so that looks pretty cool. As for his head, it's just the standard Lego head, but then I changed out the hair for the Thorn Oakenshield hair that they used for the Hobbit movies, except I modified the crap out of the hair back here, so you'd be able to fit this canister on there. So that's it for Baze. Pretty challenging figure to make, but I'm pretty happy with how he turned out. So there is Baze Malbus. Next up is Chirrut Îmwe. Now Chirrut is armed with his staff that he uses to kick some stormtrooper ass with in that one scene that we've seen in every single one of the trailers. Now I feel like I could have done a lot more to this staff to make it a lot better. It's pretty simple right now, but I just didn't have that much time to focus on his staff when I was working on a whole bunch of other figures. So this is kind of just like a last minute throw together thing for this, so I might go back to it in the future, revisit it and redo it, but right now this is what I have. So sorry if you guys think that's pretty crappy, but I know it is. So I'm just going to take that out of his hand just to get that out of the way. So Chirrut here utilizes a lot of 3D elements, so let's go ahead and jump in. First off, with his waist cape here. Now when I first was looking at his costume, I had thought that his waist cape was also a tunic, or like robes that came down, but no, it's just a waist cape, just goes around his waist. So he's got a layer of red cloth on the bottom there that wraps all the way around, and then he's got a layer of black cloth that goes over that and kind of meets at that belt area right there. It also has this kind of a red and white stripe painted on there. Now on his torso, I painted it a matte black color, since there's kind of like this off black type color, and then I used some gray to make the pockets and the collars and the wrinkles, and then he also has this blue stripe right there. At least on the Hot Toys figure, that's what I was basing this off of. The Hot Toys one had a blue stripe across the chest there, so added that little detail on there just to give it some color. Now his, I guess his like, I don't know what that is, his harness or whatever, in his belt area. So that's all made out of one sheet of, or one little strip of E-tape. So that wraps around his torso all the way and meets at the back. And yeah, it's kind of crappy right there, but I was hoping that the cloth would kind of cover over that, but you know, it didn't, but whatever, it doesn't really make that big of a deal. So it wraps all the way around. This little piece of cloth is draped over one of those pieces of E-tape, and then those all meet right there. Then you have these little canisters or whatever that were sculpted and then glued on there and painted up. He's got other little layers of E-tape for that design he had on his little strap there. So I thought that was a little cool detail to add. And then he has this little box that's hanging down right here that was sculpted and then painted up. His arm, it's got some details painted on it in matte black and then also in some dark gray. And then this little, this band across his arm there and his gauntlet and the little piece on his hand there were all sculpted with Procreate, painted up, and I think it looks pretty nice. So a lot of details packed in this guy. I didn't do anything to his face or his hair because I feel like Lego did a pretty good job with those. And yeah, Chirrut wasn't the hardest figure to make, but I really like how he turned out. So there is Chirrut Îmwe. Last up is Bodhi Rook. Now Bodhi's on the simpler side of the figures that I made, but I'm still pretty happy with how he turned out. So he's armed with a Brick Arms DH-17 blaster pistol, but I painted it up a little bit, and I'm going to take that out of his hands now just to let some light in on him, since I was kind of blocking it out. So he's wearing this gray Imperial jumpsuit, and it was pretty fun to paint for the most part, except for the Imperial logos on his shoulders, but I'll get to those in a little bit. So on his legs there, you just have some dark brown shoes painted on, and then some black pockets painted onto the upper leg there. Moving on to the torso, he's got his jumpsuit painted onto his gray torso. So I really like that design. I think it turned out pretty nice. Now his vest is a cloth vest that wraps all the way around him like that. No detail on the back. Didn't really find any good reference for that. And he also has this huge backpack that I just didn't want to make. So I just left that off, and I don't think he wears it all the time. So I just left that off because I felt like it would be kind of unnecessary. So the front of his vest, I took same liberties I took with Jyn, with using ideas from my A New Hope Han Solo with the 3D cloth pockets, and I think that turned out pretty nice. So I made a bunch of different pockets and glued them on, painted them up, and I think it turned out pretty good. He also has this weird like rod or something sticking out of his jacket, so I added that on there, and then I painted on his zipper. Moving on to the arms here, on this side he's got a little comlink and then the Imperial badge. Some canisters sticking out of the pocket there. So again, the badges on this guy were, I don't know why, but the ones on my K2SO turned out a lot better than these ones. I don't know if it's just the colors or what, but these ones I painted before that, so I guess maybe it was just some experience. I had some experience painting them, so they turned out better on K2 than him. But this side is just more of a watered down version of the other side, just without the canisters and the comlink. So there's that side. And then the head is just the Lego Bodhi head, and then I took the Lego hair and glued on some goggles there, since I didn't really like the look of just the print on there. Now, what I was going to do with these goggles is I was going to take some, like a plastic bag and cut it up and glue it on, and I tried that. But just the plastic would not adhere to the glue and stick to the plastic, so I was like, you know, why the heck is this not working? So I just kind of chose to just drop that idea for now, maybe update it in the future, but that idea was one that me and Dylan actually came up with, and it just didn't work out, so kind of pissed me off, but whatever. The glue and just the residue from that plastic kind of left a nice sheen up there, and I was really shooting for like the transparent color that they actually are, since his goggles are just a transparent clear color, and I kind of achieved that. I don't know, but we'll see if I can figure out anything else in the future. And then he also just has this black strap wrapping around his head like so, just to keep the goggles on. So there's Bodhi Rook. Pretty simple figure, but I'm pretty happy with how he turned out. So let's go ahead and wrap up this video. Alright guys, that is going to be it for this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. Like I said earlier on in the video, please do not post spoilers down in the comments. I don't have the movie ruined for anybody that hasn't seen it yet and is just trying to check out these figures, so don't ruin it for others. Don't post spoilers. I'll be banning people that do that, so don't make me do that. Just don't post spoilers. Just be a considerate person and don't ruin it for others. So that being said, you guys can comment down below which of these figures is your favorite. I'd have to say my top three have to be K2, Cassian, and Darth Vader. I just am really proud with all those guys. I just think they turn out really nice and are some of my best figures out of this lineup. So let me know which of these guys is your favorite down in the comments. I'd love to hear it. And I know YouTube's algorithm just changed, so it would be great if you guys would like this video and share it and stuff, because that would help me out a ton, because I don't know what the heck's going on with their system now, but YouTube changed, so they're unsubscribing people and they're making likes like a lot more heavy on your video and stuff. So just, you know, make sure to like this video, share it, and make sure you're subscribed too. And if you are subscribed, turn on notifications so you guys can know whenever I upload a video, because I know the sub feed thing is kind of screwy right now. It doesn't really work that well. So turn on notifications, make sure you're subscribed, and like the video. All that stuff would really help me out. So thank you guys so much for watching. If you haven't already, please check out my social media accounts. All be linked to in the description down below, so definitely go check those out. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys later.